and thank you for taking your time to join Penang Institute's webinar with the title of As the Pandemic and Lockdown Drag On, How Will SMEs Survive? We are pleased to have two experts in this field who are also in the SMEs business, and we have the pleasure, and I now introduce the speakers. They are Mr. Yeoh Hooi, the Honorary Secretary General of Small and Medium Enterprises Association, SAMENTA, and Ms. Krista Goon, the co-founder and co-chair of WomenBizSENSE. The session tonight will begin with a very short background to the topic, followed by a presentation by Mr. Yeoh, then a presentation by Ms. Goon, and finally we will have a Q&A session where the audience are invited to participate, and you can key in your questions in the comment section. We endeavor to address as many questions as possible within the limited time that we have. Now, I would just like to take a very short time to do a very quick introduction to the to our topic tonight. You are able to see on the screen that SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, play a very important role in the economy. In Penang, 99% of the establishments are SMEs. And definitely in our daily life, we are able to see the businesses that we go to, or the or family members that we know who are working in SMEs, or products that we buy from SMEs. And this shows how SMEs are an integral part of our lives. In Penang, the SMEs employees are mostly in the services sector, where 63% of them are employed, followed by the manufacturing sector. About 25% are employed in the manufacturing, and followed by construction and agriculture sectors. And pre-pandemic period, the SMEs in Malaysia contribute almost 40% to the country's GDP. Last year, Malaysian SMEs contribution to the gross domestic product dropped from 38.9% in 2019 to 38.2% in 2020. And this reflects the impact that the SMEs feel from the pandemic, from the lockdown. And in terms of monetary numbers, in 2020, the Malaysian SMEs incur losses of about 40.7 billion ringgit. And definitely, not only in 2020, in 2021, we are also seeing uh, the same or even more prevalent impact of the pandemic, of the movement control order, um, to the economy, and especially to the many SMEs um, in the economy. That's why I think it becomes even more important to discuss the topic of the night, which is, as the pandemic and lockdown drag on, how will SMEs survive? Next, let me move on to introduce the first speaker of the night, Mr. Yeoh Hooi. Mr. Yeoh Hooi is the Honorary Secretary General of the Small and Medium Enterprises Association, SAMENTA. He graduated with a Bachelor in Economics from University of Chicago and a Master's in Economics Management from USM. He has more than 35 years of experience in both private and public sectors in management, with a focus on finance, strategic management, and export marketing. He also helped to lead a company on the second board in mid-90s and had served as the executive director. He was also the corporate director of a main board listed company for 5 years. 2 years later, he was an IPO consultant for a theme park company that was listed on Catalyst Singapore. Currently, he runs a boutique consultancy that advises SMEs in financial, strategic, and export management. He's a business coach to SMEs entrepreneurs in Restage Malaysia and writes frequently on issues affecting SMEs. With that, I would pass the session now to Mr. Yeoh for his presentation.
Well, thank you, Xiuming, for the introduction. I think let's go straight into the session for this evening. You all can see the slides, and I hope you can hear me well. Okay, I will just tweak the topic for today slightly. Instead of will, I will say how can SMEs survive during this pandemic. So, the next slide, please. So today I will cover a few things, as you can see from the contents, which will be basically a situational analysis, or what I call a snapshot of the current situation, which has also been touched upon slightly by Xiuming just now. I will talk about also the impact on the essentials. So that means those business sectors that are listed under essentials versus the non-essentials, because there'll be a different approach, and the impact will be also different. The third point that I will be talking about will be, relooking at the current business model for some of the SMEs. Whether you should be pivoting or realigning your strategies, and then I'll talk very briefly about the government assistance, what we want from the government, or how the government can support and facilitate SMEs. And finally, which will be on, which is basically the so-called $1 million question, which is viability. Next slide. Yeah. Okay, so this is the current snapshot. I'm sure you all have read about, I think it was a couple of months back before the change of government, the minister from MIDAC, which is the Ministry of Entrepreneur Development and Cooperatives, and this particular point has been beaten about for quite a long while, which is that more than 500,000 SMEs are expected to collapse by October. I won't go into the reasons why this is going to happen, but I think just bear in mind that in terms of the composition or the structure of the SME industry, about 700 to 800,000 are the micros. And then you have about 100 plus 200,000 of the S, and then you have the balance of the M, which makes up about like 1 million, slightly over 1 million. So the micros are of course very susceptible to the changes and the fluctuations of the economy. Okay, so looking at a snapshot, you can see that when we did a survey, when SAMENTA did a survey sometime in June, actually we found that 56% in terms of prospects for recovery, we found that 56% are expecting the turnaround to be in mid 2022 and beyond, and 12% is actually even looking at a time frame or horizon that is much further, which is in 2023. So you can see from here that this survey was done in June, so which was not that far back. It's just like a couple of months ago, and like a total of like more than 50% actually do not expect any significant recovery from now until mid 2022. And this particular scenario was also confirmed because as mentioned by Xiuming, I also sit in the Vistage CEO committee for which assesses the confidence level of Vistage members. And from our latest survey, which was conducted in August, whereby the results were just published recently in the Age, because it's actually a Vistage MIER combined survey. So the figures are pretty much the same. In fact, about 33% of the members poll indicated that recovery is only expected sometime around first half of 2022. Second half is basically going to be another 30%, and 16%, only expects to see a significant improvement or turnaround by 2023. So the prospects, and of course, if you have read the Fitch Solutions report, Again, the economic prospects may not be so bullish, because they're talking about increasing unemployment, and of course depressed purchasing power because of this dampening effect on disposable income. So our survey from SAMENTA also shows that in terms of cash flow or cash reserves, 66% actually, that was in June, have reserves of less than 3 months. And then this is sort of expected, because the pandemic has been with us for more than a year now. And as you can see, many of these people, especially in the non-essentials or who can't operate, would have actually depleted a lot of their reserves. So these are all current snapshots or situational analysis for you to understand the current scenarios before we can talk about what are the measures that can be considered or implemented. Okay, and 23% of the SMEs surveyed expected or expects to lay off to lay off some staff. Okay. What has happened in terms of support and assistance is, as you all are aware, is of course the wage subsidy has been a blessing. I mean, for those of you who have received some form of subsistence, subsidy from the government, this has actually helped to defray the expenses and to actually allow you to keep some of your staff. And now, of course, this has been extended until year end. The loan moratorium is also another positive impact, because that is also enable SMEs to actually conserve some cash flow. Of course, the moratorium doesn't mean that you don't have to pay back, but the thing is that at least there's actually a period where you can withhold payment until year end. And the most recent one is actually for 6 months, from July till year ends. So for those who can't operate, this is actually a big plus, because then it eases your cash outflow, at least during this period, so that you can sustain the reserves. Okay. Next slide. So this is a current snapshot. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. So what's the scenario when we're talking about essentials and the non? Of course, for essentials, as you know, that they can operate, but albeit maybe at a lower capacity, and of course there are disruptions as well. But the thing is that, as you know, the vaccination rollout, it still affects operational capacity because of the frequent EMCO in the past, lockdowns which are happening on a regular basis. So this is actually very disruptive, and the compliance to SOPs is also very challenging. I'm sure SMEs have already been complaining a lot, saying that there have been very flip-flops, a lot of significant flip-flops in terms of the policies and in terms of SOPs, and this has actually created a lot of headaches as well. So it's been very challenging, and also it's a costly exercise to be sanitizing, to be implementing all these procedures on a regular basis, testing. All these are actually it has a monetary or financial impact on SMEs. But of course, we understand the need for some of this. Again, as I've said, positive cases have been disruptive because sometimes they will have to shut down for a couple of weeks. Export orders, that's something which is actually very worrisome, because there are many people who are many companies who are in the non-essentials, but they are actually getting the export orders. For example, like in the furniture, apparel, and other types of businesses, and because if they can't operate, of course, this has been very detrimental to their economic situation. And not only that, because it's going to actually impact the confidence level of your overseas buyers as well. So these are all very serious disruptions, and has actually impinged or affected SMEs. Okay. Supply chain disruptions. I'm sure you guys, for those who are in the SMEs or in business, you've been hearing about cost of raw materials going up, logistics costs skyrocketing, delays in getting your containers. All these are all happening. Unfortunately, in an environment where business is already down or business is already depressed, and in some cases, they can't even generate sufficient funds to cover their fixed expenses. Okay, so the essentials, like I said, are a little bit luckier because there's still some sales. Of course, there are also scenarios where I've seen cases where SMEs are still able to also generate sales which were higher than last year, and also even in 2019. But of course, the percentage is probably lower. So the thing is that so there are cases also for pluses. So, we have to acknowledge that. But in general, I think a lot of them have been impacted. Yeah. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. So what do? You see, it's like, let's say if you happen to be in a non-essential sector, you really have to relook, as I say, at your business model. So I'm using the analogy of whether it's like for American football or whether it's for soccer. The thing is that you got to start playing defense, if you're in the non-essential sector, because being in a non-essential is like playing a football team where you have 10 persons against your opponent. So what you do is that you play defense. That means like you actually, because you can't operate, so you just have to conserve as much cash as possible. So what you can do is like you have to try to cut whatever expenses that you have where possible. And the thing is that you have to conserve cash. You may have to even rely on some form of what we call creditors financing. Sad to say, it's a vicious cycle, because if you don't pay your creditors don't pay their creditors, and it goes through a whole vicious cycle. But this is the reality of the situation, is that it's because like in order to conserve cash to fight another day, you probably have to go through some of these measures. Okay? In some more acute cases, you may have to retrench or even terminate some of your employees, because otherwise you can't be bleeding and incurring all these expenses if you do not have revenue, or if your revenue has actually dropped very, very drastically. Yeah. But of course, like what we mentioned earlier, the blessing, is that at least with the wage subsidy, that's helped to cushion off some of this impact. But again, the big question mark is that how long can this last, right? Because if you don't have revenue at all, then even if you try to obtain the subsidy, you will still have to cover the shortfall. So these are things that you need to look at. For some of the SMEs, of course, they've applied for soft loans. Again, this is a loan. It's not a grant, so it has to be paid back. So if you can see the light of day, as what I've mentioned here, that means unless you think that your business is still viable, we'll talk about this later in the presentation. If you think that your business is still viable, then you may want to actually look at getting a soft loan, which, let's say, for example, the term loans that have been given by some of the banks through CGC could be for as long as 6 years. So this may help you to ease your cash flow scenario. Okay, but again, the key point to note is that you must feel that the business is still viable. Otherwise, it's just throwing good money after bad. Because if you're getting a loan just for the sake of taking it, and if you know that your business model is no longer viable, what do? We'll talk about it in subsequent slides. Okay, so you have to make sure that relook at your business model, and if you think that yes, it's just a temporary aberration, it's a temporary setback, then that's when the so-called soft loan comes into the picture. Yeah. Okay. In an extreme case, you can also demonetize, but of course, this is something that provided you still have assets, then you may have to look at the possibility of, hey, if you still own some assets, you may have to demonetize the assets or even sell the assets to generate some cash flow in order to enable you to fight another day. Okay. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. So what are the things that for SMEs to survive this situation is, again, it's still cash flow. Okay. So going forward, it's like, you have to basically, learning from the experience and what you've gone through, is that you're going to be looking at things which are maybe less dependent on fixed costs. That means you're going to be trying to develop a business that's sustainable on a variable cost model. Of course, it's easier said than done, but you're going to try to lower fixed costs. So like in the case of salaries, you may not want to pay a high fixed salary, but you want to incentivize them through commissions and other types of perks, which are tied to sales and performance. So you do not actually saddle yourself with very high fixed costs. Okay. In the hotel industry, if you talk to people now going forward, they're going to say that, hey, people are going to be looking at more tech, more digitalization, where actually the reality is probably that, less staff will be required. So again, because they're looking at lower fixed costs with more tech, more digitalization, in order to be able to sustain the business model. Okay. And people will be looking at outsourcing. The outsourcing is going to be conducted more rampantly for obvious reasons, because again, it becomes a variable cost. So you've got to start looking at, do you need to keep the entire accounting team in place? Can you outsource that? Nowadays, you have a lot of apps in place. You've got third-party providers. So you're going to look at things where you can actually switch from a fixed to a more variable cost model. Okay, and even in terms of software, rather than upgrading and buying expensive software, can you look at maybe SaaS kind of options, which doesn't require so much upgrading. So it becomes a variable cost. So you pay on a per user basis and things like that. And of course, this has been carried out in many developed countries for a long time, like say in places like Japan, in Korea, Taiwan. They depend a lot on subcons, subcontractors. So they don't, like, so in times of a crisis, of course, they're able to, because it's a variable cost, they're able to reduce some of this expenditure because they cut back on the the relationship or the trade with the subcons. Unfortunately, of course, if you happen to be a subcon, it's not a good thing for you. But these are things that you have to look at when you're considering a switch to a variable cost model. These are just some examples. Okay, yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have been hearing about the word pivot, which is like is the current buzzword, especially during this MCO pandemic, where people are talking about pivoting. So pivot to what? Okay. So pivoting, of course, the gist of pivoting is actually to relook, as what I've mentioned earlier, to relook at your business model. How do you transform your business model? So you got to actually ask yourself whether your business model is still relevant, in this present time. Okay. So, for example, if you're like you're selling printed paper bags, you're a B2B, kind of seller. To departmental stores, and currently, of course, departmental stores have been hit very badly because they can't operate. So what do? I mean, do you just sit and wait, when sales is down, or do you try to pivot, to look at, for example, hey, maybe I should start going into some B2C selling online. I know some people who are doing that, and they actually have, managed to increase some of the sales. They've generated some alternative revenue channels. So basically, relook at some of your options, and you can pivot to areas where there is still some business being generated. So of course, everybody now talks about, when you talk about pivoting, it's again, the big emphasis on O&O. You guys know what that is, your offline and online. So I think that's become a necessity for most businesses now. It's going to be a hybrid where it's going to be offline and online, and the reality is that if you do not do that, you probably may actually suffer even more drastic disruptions in your business. Okay, exports. You see, again, a lot of people have just thought about selling online to the domestic market, but what about you've got the whole world as your oyster out there, and to facilitate exports nowadays, you have people like Amazon through FBA, whereby, it's actually not that difficult for you to consider exporting. So even if, let's say, for example, the domestic market is still a bit depressed, but as like some of these countries, like in the US and Europe, is starting to pick up again in terms of the momentum, the consumer demand. So what you can do is that you can actually start considering exporting online. Okay, and so you have all these platforms that will be able to, marketplaces that can help you to do that. And I think the B2C, you guys should be very familiar. I'm not going to talk too much about that. But again, pivoting is also like, let's say another example is like beauty salons can't operate. So if you are selling to beauty salons, so what do? Do you just, just give up hope or do you start looking at new areas, new channels where you can actually sell to? So, for example, if you're selling toiletries, another option is that they can start looking at, hey, maybe instead of just selling toiletries for human usage, now maybe I could be looking at maybe selling toiletries also, for the pet industry. Okay, yeah. So these are just some examples for you to start thinking, which is actually based on the fact that you need to relook at your business model, and you may need to transform your business model. Otherwise, sad to say, you may not survive. In terms of the economic situation going forward. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah. Next slide, please. Thanks. Hello. Yeah, thanks. Okay. So again, when you say pivoting, and then what you need to do when you have decided to pivot is that, of course, you've got to realign your strategies, based on the new growth areas. So just give an example. Let's say, right now, you see, is the entire property sector depressed? Probably not quite, if you've been reading the reports, because the industrial sector is still doing relatively well. So these are things that you need to think about. Let's say if you're in the services, construction services, and you feel that maybe the commercial side is a bit down, you may be looking at industrial. So the point is that you have to be realigning your strategies by pivoting or looking at the current sectors that are still dynamic, that are still growing. Okay. Tourism and retail, again, a very sad situation in some cases. But I mean, you've read some stories of some of them having to go into hibernation. There's nothing wrong to go into hibernation, because if you are in a business where you think that you just can't sustain it for now, because you don't have the revenue coming in, it may be better to just conserve your cash flow so that you can fight another day. So just go into hibernation. I mean, if you really need to, or you may have to scale down your business, review, as what I've been saying. Okay, so you've seen cases like Air Asia going into ride hailing. I mean, from an airline business, they're now moving into ride hailing. Why? I mean, the things like they're developing super apps. They're going into digital, fintech and stuff like that. Because again, pivoting, because looking at where the growth areas are going to be, but capitalizing on their database, on what they have in terms of the customer information, which they think it can be translated into a profitable business for them. Okay, so these are things that you need to look at when you realign your strategies. Like I said, in terms of export, don't just depend on it could be a B2C model or B2B. When we talk about online, it's not necessarily just domestic, but you can also look at the international markets, which is actually much larger. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah. How can the government help? I mean, I think you've seen that there have been wage subsidies, which has been, of course, provided, and now it's been extended. What SAMENTA has done is that what we are basically advocating to the government is that, because for those businesses that still can't operate, they may need more than December, because right now we are only in phases 1, 2, in some cases, maybe 3. But by the time we reach phases 3 and 4, we're looking at probably year end. So for businesses to turn around, they would probably need another 6 months. Okay, so these are the things. So loan moratorium, government procurement, these are things that you can see from the slide. We've been advocating to the government to actually support SMEs by buying at least 30% of the goods and services from SMEs. Of course, there'll be an e-tender, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's going to be competitive, but at least this would help to support SMEs that are trying to ride the curve of recovery. Okay, working capital financing, very, very important. Because as what we have always been talking about is that even if the lockdown ends, or if we move into phase 4, again, most of the SMEs would already have depleted their cash reserves, as you saw earlier from the other slides. So they need working capital financing from the banks, and this is where the government through CGC comes into the picture. Invoice financing, so it's targeted or trade financing. So that means it's going to be used to purchase raw materials or purchase goods. Okay, so it's going to help businesses to grow, because otherwise creditors will still be clamping down on credit terms because of the fear. Okay, so liquidity is going to be an issue, and we're hoping that there'll be some form of rental subsidy for those who can't operate until June, and these are the things that we feel will help to enable SMEs to move forward, because the two biggest expenses for most of the businesses, especially in services, would be rental and staff, and of course buying of your goods or products as well. Okay, your trade financing. Okay, next slide. Yeah. Okay, I'm coming towards the end. So again, like I said, eventually, after you have done your review or your situational analysis, reassess the viability of your business. Let's be realistic about it. Okay, so you're going to ask yourself fundamental questions. It's like, can I pivot? Can I actually transform, or can I come up with a new business model? You've got to be very realistic and very, very frank with your own analysis. So ask yourself key fundamental questions, which is like, then if the answer is yes, if you actually can come up with a new business model by tweaking it or by pivoting, then the next question to ask is, do you have sufficient cash flow for the next 6 to 12 months? Because if you don't have that, how are you going to last the pace? Even if you, let's say, have thought about a new model, but if you do not have sufficient cash, which is the lifeblood of a business, you can't last for 6 to 12 months. And so does that give you any hope of turning around, of recovery? So look at the worst case scenario in your planning. As they say, plan for the worst, but hope for the best. So look at a worst case scenario plan. Do not be overly optimistic, because, like what we said, the recovery is going to be still a bit flat. So the thing is that, you have to be rather conservative. So look at a worst case scenario and see how much cash flow you need. So again, how do you get this cash flow? So if the answer is still no, and you're not able to generate all this cash flow, you can't get the support of the bank, or you don't have enough reserves, then you got to ask yourself, hey, should I still continue with the business? The answer, which maybe people would not like to hear, but unfortunately I have to advocate to some extent, is that there's no shame to shut down the business, on a temporary basis and cutting your loss. Because, as you know, a lot of successful entrepreneurs have failed many times. So the thing is that if you think that it's still not viable after going through this exercise to evaluate the viability of a business, then just cut your losses and end it here, and conserve your whatever remaining funds that you have left, so that you can look for another business to start in the near future. Okay, so this is something which sometimes it's painful, yes, but let's not throw good money after bad. Okay, so reassess your business model, your viability, very, very seriously and very, very thoroughly. Okay. My conclusion is that, like I said, unfortunately, we just happen to be caught up in this COVID pandemic, which I call a double whammy. But this is a 10-year business cycle that was expected to happen anyway, because the thing is that the last crisis was probably around 2008, so this is extended beyond the so-called 2018, 2019. Okay, so in any of these 10-year cycles, there would be shakeouts. Unfortunately, some will make it, some don't. So my parting message is that, look at your business model again. If you need to transform, scrutinize, what makes it viable. Look at the options, the alternative revenue channels, and then consider what kind of cash flow or financial support that you can get, whether from the banks, or whatever reserves that you have. So if you think that it's still viable, go ahead. And then consider that some of the things that I mentioned earlier about, like looking at more variable cost business model. Okay, so with that, I would end my session, and I hope it's useful for you, and I wish you all the best in your journey as an SME. And I think we are resilient. We will be able to put in the effort, creative enough to fight. To make it, in the near future. But again, if you really find that the chips are completely down, well, sometimes you just have to walk away. Yeah. With that, I would like to pass it back to Siu Ming. Thank you, Siu Ming, for this opportunity to share with the audience. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Yeoh. Mr. Yeoh will still be with us later for the Q&A session. So I've seen some questions coming in. Please feel free to have your questions in the comment section, and we will address these questions later during the Q&A session. If I may just very quickly summarize the presentation, I think Mr. Yeoh mentioned about SMEs. Some of the SMEs are only expecting recovery in 2022, 2023. And Mr. Yeoh also advocates that SMEs plan based on the worst case scenario to really look at how they can work around the current situation. And secondly, the flip-flop in policies, they are really very costly to SMEs. And the third one, I think pivot is the word now, whether to maintain that relevancy or also to take advantage of the current situation and adjust the business accordingly. For those who have just joined us, let me welcome everyone again to Penang Institute's webinar, As the Pandemic and Lockdown Drag On, How Will SMEs Survive? Let me now introduce our second speaker, Ms. Krista Goon, co-founder and co-chair of WomenBizSENSE. Ms. Krista is the co-founder of WomenBizSENSE and presently is the co-chairperson. So WomenBizSENSE is a Penang-based association of women entrepreneurs, and she co-founded it in 2006 with Josephine Yeoh. She is also the co-owner of Redbox Studio with 23 years of experience in copywriting and marketing, where she helps business owners leverage websites and marketing communications for greater visibility, credibility, and profitability. Besides consulting, teaching, and speaking, she's the author of Web Wisdom, a book she wrote with her business partner, Nick Sim. She shares valuable business insights in the fortnightly Redbox Studio FB Live series and produces her own podcast, Womenpreneur Asia, that features Asian women entrepreneurs and their personal stories of grit and resilience. And with that, let me now pass the session to Miss Krista Goon.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, for that introduction. So I really enjoyed listening to Mr. Yeoh just now. He gave the big picture, right? So now on my side, I am going to share with you what I personally call the personal stories from some of our selected WomenBizSENSE members, right? So let me just share my screen. Okay, so this is a deeper look into some of the stories of how our women members are navigating this pandemic. So I would like to start by reintroducing myself. So my name is Krista Goon, and I'm the co-founder and co-chair of WomenBizSENSE, a Penang-based women entrepreneur association with my fellow co-founder, Josephine. And together since 2006, we have started this organization specifically for women in Penang. So a lot of times people ask us whether we are going to other places than Penang, and we say, hang on there, we'll be getting to your city real soon, but we have to really start with our home ground first. So who am I? So my day job, or I call my business, is actually in web development, brand strategy, and marketing communications. And I have been a copywriter for 23 years. And a lot of what I do has to do with content and copywriting. So this is what I do when I'm not the co-chair for WomenBizSENSE. Besides that, I'm also the board member for IABC Malaysia, which is an international association for business communicators, and I'm in the Malaysia chapter. I'm also on the board of directors for Penang Women's Development Corporation, And I was in the technical committee for the Women in Economy conference in 2018, where we dealt with a lot of women entrepreneurship issues, as well as presently I'm this Penang State Women Entrepreneur Mentoring Program, which we started in 2020. And this year we're back with version 2.0. So all said and done, I'm actually someone who really loves entrepreneurship, business, and the topic of women in business. And what I do, as what Dr. Lee mentioned, is that I teach and I train, and I love teaching and training. Probably that's a nod to the teaching gene in me, because my dad and my sister are teachers. Some of the things that I do besides teaching offline is because during the pandemic, a lot of us have gone online. So I've done a lot of webinars, I've done a lot of talks. And as Dr. Lee mentioned, I also have my own Facebook live series. So let's get into today's topic, right? But before that, let me just briefly introduce WomenBizSENSE. So who are we? So we are a group of women in business in Penang, and we have been around since 2006. And this is something that we did for International Women's Day this year, where we did a collage of all our pictures. Even though we couldn't meet each other physically, we could do something fun like this together. As you can see here, all our women are very happy, and we just love being together. And what do we do? What's our vision, right, for WomenBizSENSE? So WomenBizSENSE, our vision is actually very simple. We are dedicated to nurturing and growing a community of successful business leaders who impact society. So this is a picture of our last 2 years, I think, our retro party. Every year we have a celebration for anniversary. And of course, this last year and this year we couldn't do it. But when we did it, we usually have really a party. So we put women together, women really can party. So how do we nurture and basically how do we do it is because we have a large group of women in business who either own or co-own their businesses, and they can range from people, members who are in micro entrepreneurs to SME owners. And we have more than 100 members today. So this is actually one of the pictures where we did a Christmas party at the Jazz Hotel in Tanjung Bunga. Just to give you a brief glimpse of the kinds of businesses in our organization. So we have people in logistic workshops, real estate, professional services, beauty, education, florists, gifts, fashion, food and beverages, very, very popular in Penang, right? We love to eat and drink. More food and beverages, financial, bank, tourism, healthcare. And yes, those are some of the brief snapshot of the women members that we have. So now we come to this question, right? How has the pandemic impacted our Penang women entrepreneurs, and are they surviving? So let's start with stories, right? So how many of you have been to this place? If you have, please comment yes in the comments. This is in Arena Curve, which is next to the Olive Tree Hotel in Baru. So if you've been to this place, please type a yes in the comment below. I want to introduce you to Michelle Yeoh, who is the owner of Dandy Modern Food, which is the restaurant that I showed you just now. So when I was asked by Penang Institute to present for today, I told myself, I have to share some stories about women, right? And so I asked Michelle, and she happily shared with us what she has been doing since the pandemic started last year. This is the other Dandy outlet. This is in Queens Bay Mall. And so I hope that, if you've been to this outlet, yes, please type a yes in the comments so we know that you're a customer of Dandy. And I personally am a customer of Dandy. And they serve very healthy Mediterranean-inspired food, anything from pizzas to salads to soups. And so I can show you some of these delicious concoctions that they have at Dandy's. And this is just two of the, I think, 150 items that they have on your menu. But, and this is what happened, right? When the pandemic started, of course, lockdown, shut down, no one was allowed to eat in or even do anything like, what we used to do, right? So sales really, really fell. And so she honestly shared with me that there was a 90% decrease in the sales due to no dine-in. And because there was no dine-in, they had to resort to doing takeaways, right? Which means either you ordered and you came and picked it up. But they also were looking at delivery platforms. But delivery platforms took, or rather ate, 30 to 35% of their revenue. So it was a really tough time for them. And at the same time, like what Mr. Yeoh mentioned, you really have to watch your costs, right? In order to manage your cash flow. So to me, and when I heard what Michelle was telling me, it was a really tough time for them. But they were hopeful and they really wanted to be there, even though it was, a tough time for themselves and their team. And interestingly, they kept themselves open so that they could do deliveries and takeaways, because she said that staying open keeps the staff morale high, which I didn't think of it that way, but actually it is true, right? When people have something to do, they really feel less depressed about the situation. So in her case, not only did it help the staff, but it also helped the community around her, her customers, her regulars, feel that there was something to look forward to. So in this case, for her, she felt that by keeping themselves open, even though it was hard, helped not only her staff, but also the community around her. And of course, she mentioned that there was aid coming from the social subsidy from the government. But to her, more importantly, was that sense of community. So if you've been to Dandy, you would really feel that in their team morale and their staff spirit. The other thing that they did was they started to pare down the menu a bit, because they were looking to control their costs. So they really looked into what the customers really wanted to eat, what the customers wanted to order. So that's how they managed during this entire, 1.5 years, by relooking their menu options. And of course, the other thing is, because they now had that little bit of extra time, they had more time for social media updates. So it was not that Dandy wasn't very good at social media updates. In fact, they do a lot of TikTok videos, which used a lot of creativity, I must say. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go and search for them on TikTok and on Instagram. And they had more time for social media updates, and they get their staff to use this time to create even more TikTok videos. So in a way, you can use the excess time to help you do more promotions and marketing. So if you haven't followed them, go and follow them on Instagram. And so what Michelle says is that she stays hopeful and she believes that things will get better, because besides the 2 outlets in Penang, they are actually looking to venture into the Klang Valley. So if you're watching this in the Klang Valley and you're thinking like, what or when can I taste Dandy's food, you'll probably have to wait a little bit longer, but they are coming to the Klang Valley. And my next story is all about food again. So this one is a chocolate maker. So this is Farhana Sharif, who's also one of our WomenBizSENSE members. So as you can see here, Farhana makes chocolates. So Farhana has a shop in Beach Street called Georgetown Heritage Chocolate. Yes, there's a double T in her brand. So she's a retailer and maker of chocolate products. So when I first asked Farhana, I said, could you share with me your story of how you navigated through the pandemic from the start until now? So she said that during the first 2 weeks of the lockdown, she felt very lost. She felt that she didn't know what to do, because as you know, Beach Street is a very, very happening area in town. And she relied on a lot of walking customers and tourists who came in to buy her products. But because of the lockdown, she couldn't open her shop. And so the first 2 weeks were kind of like trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen? She thought that the lockdown was going to be maybe the most a month. And after that, she could really open up again to sell her chocolates. But it didn't. And it went on for a while. So she had to really think of what else could she do for herself, right? To bring in the sales. So what she did was she joined Shopee and Facebook groups to start selling and promoting her products. The other thing that she did was she focused on her products, means making the products, and also the brand story of her products. So in the past, she said that she didn't really focus so much on that, but focusing on the brand really lets people know you better and know why you're in this business. So she started looking into sharing more of her story of why she's in this chocolate business. And other than that, what actually gave her hope was that she underwent 6 months of a mentoring program by the Penang government. Actually, this is a program by PWDC. It's called the Penang Women Entrepreneur Mentoring Program. And this is where she said it gave her hope because she was with her peers, she was with her mentors and people who really encouraged her and really gave her hope that, just hanging there because the better days would come. So she could just feel that there was something for her at the end of the day, like she had her friends and people cheering her on. The other thing that she did was she switched to selling in bulk. In the past, she was doing more B2C. Now she tried to put perhaps more B2C, but also more as in selling in probably like what most people term of as group buys. And she managed to create some Raya gift hampers during Raya so that people could buy more of her products. The other thing that she told me too, that she had support from MARA, Perda, and Jabatan Pertanian. So this is where she felt that a lot of how she could pull through was the financial support from these organizations. The other thing that she did was she upgraded her skills through online classes. So it means that she took classes on selling on Facebook, selling on Shopee, and at the same time, and this is the interesting part, right? After she had started selling on Shopee as well as on Facebook, she upgraded her own skill. At the same time, she managed to teach others too how to sell on Shopee like her. So, from being a little bit lost in the beginning and then later finding hope through the mentoring program that PWDC was doing for 6 months. And she was also brave enough to teach other people how to do it. So she wasn't even, thinking like, okay, how can I go through this? But how can I teach other people what I know? Because probably they are also struggling like me. And the best part was she said that the financial assistance helped her to buy machinery. And she wants to try out some new products because she also is looking to scale. And like what Mr. Yeoh mentioned just now, look into the export market. So that is where Farhana is really going to look forward to for the next couple of months, because she was sharing with me that she wanted to really scale up her business by using machines as well as to explore other markets outside of Malaysia. And now we come to the other story. So this one is a little bit different. So this is not a food business. This is a gifts, home decor, and lifestyle business on Lorong Stewart that is owned by another member of ours, Pam Mueller. So Pam Mueller owns 5.4 Degree North at Stewart Lane, Penang. So she's a retailer in home decor, lifestyle, concept, and gifts. Now, her business is really, really relying on people to walk in, people to buy, because her gifts are beautiful, right? Her products are really those things that sometimes you just need to touch and feel them and to look at them closely because they're so pretty. But she also lost 90% of her business since 18th of March. And she had to, because she relied a lot on walking customers, actually 70% were foreign tourists and 30% were local tourists. So because of the shutdown, no tourists were coming to Penang. So a lot of this really affected her business. So up to 90% of her business was lost. So that's where she says, as we rely on walk-ins and our business concept is face-to-face business, it has been hard to pivot to online strategies. So she says that they are still in the survival mode. So as you can see, these are some of the wonderful, beautiful products that she has. And so when I asked her, so government aid been enough? And then she says, government aid is a small band-aid covering a huge wound, which is, again, reflective of what Mr. Yeoh mentioned just now. And it's also a terrible struggle among small retailers like her, because she really relies on a lot of personal service as well as walk-ins. And so when I asked her what she thought would be good, is that she said, as long as life can go on, and this means that people need to be vaccinated so that we can all go out. We can all go out and live as normal life as we can, and for borders to open so that people can come back into Penang and Georgetown. So this is what she said, right? When she drives into Georgetown to check on her store, it's very depressing to see the empty streets and shut stores and the many homeless, jobless, and mentally unstable people hanging around. So really, really empathize with Pam and her situation, because it's really tough for her right now. Now, another story I wanted to share is my co-founder story, right? My WomenBizSENSE co-founder story, Josephine. She owns a shop that sells children's education toys and books called Precious Ones on Codrington Avenue in Penang. And she also runs a workshop for children on finances. So now this is the interesting part, right? So in terms of businesses, she has two types of businesses. One is product focused, and one is more on teaching, right, on the workshops. So her retail sales were down 80%. This is pretty common, as you have seen. There's a pattern here. 80 to 90% is pretty common. But she moved online. And so she moved online to sell through Shopee. And also because of the excess time, right? So she looked into other avenues such as updating her website and her social media to get more sales. So this helped her a bit, in the sense that now she could really focus her time and energy on looking into the online segment of customers. She also hired people to help with social media updates. So I think part of it is to know where your strengths are and know where you can do what you want to do. But if you really can't do it, you really have to outsource. And she says that she did receive grants for digitalization and wage subsidies for her staff. So this part is about her retail business. But her financial workshop for kids were actually physical classes. So these physical classes were like, small group, but there's someone teaching the children about financial integrity. So her program is very cute. It's called Fintegrity, right? So it's financial integrity. And so they have these themes that they talk about, which is life, integrity, and money basics. So these were the classes that they used to have because they went direct into physical classes for 4 to 12 years old. But when the pandemic hit, they couldn't, right? But they're forced to pivot online. And since then, something interesting has happened to a business. And since July 2020, they had to rework their curriculum to cater to Zoom sessions. So when they did this, suddenly a different market opened up for them. So now they can access and have sessions with children from Dubai, Hong Kong, Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore, and Kenya. So to her, the African part was a little bit unusual, because she thought that, okay, maybe ASEAN, but this one was something unusual. And it kind of opened her eyes to the fact that now with virtual sessions, she can conduct this program with anyone, anywhere in the world, right? So besides that, there's other things have started happening for her in her business. Started an animation project, okay? And what you see on the screen right now is a board game based on her Fintegrity workshop. So she has been doing this, working on this. There are also advanced digital collaborations. So I presume that they are like something to do with online games based on Fintegrity, board game perhaps, or even an app. And the best part is she's attracting other stakeholders to join in to support her vision for these financial workshops for children. So this is pretty interesting, isn't it? When something doesn't work and then you're forced to do something else, you open up a totally new world. And now, finally, my story. So I started my podcast during the pandemic last year. And to me, this is just a fun passion project because with my work with women entrepreneurs, I figured that there were so many women entrepreneurs out there that I wanted to access, and I wanted to hear the stories and feature them. And so I started my podcast, which features Asian women entrepreneurs. You can listen to it on Spotify, or you can go directly to my website. And what's interesting is this podcast has allowed me also to go virtual. As it is, I'm already in a digital business, but this podcast has also opened up a completely new world for me, because right now I'm accessing and I'm able to access women entrepreneurs from India to Japan. And people have been very supportive on my project. They're introducing their friends to me and friends of friends. So this has also allowed me to look into things like virtual collaborations with the women that I meet online through my podcast, as well as women who are introduced to me when they listen to my podcast, or when they think that they have something that we could potentially work on together. The other thing, of course, is my own live stream series, which I've been doing since last year, also during the pandemic. And up to today, I think I have 33 episodes already. And this also allows me to meet more people. So by getting my guests on my Facebook Live, I've been able to meet countless entrepreneurs, because I focus on topics like business, leadership, and marketing. And this has allowed me also to improve my own interviewing skills as well as my communication skills. So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes things will happen when we try something new. And to me, there's always this concept of, yes, we are afraid. Sometimes it may work out, sometimes it may not. And like what Mr. Yeoh says, maybe sometimes it's good to go into hibernation mode. Maybe sometimes it's good to not throw good money after bad. But if there is one aspect that I encourage you to really look into, is to really think of what is possible, what can be possible for you. So like what Mr. Yeoh said, he said he doesn't like it to be how will SME survive, is how can SME survive. So for me, doors have opened because of my podcasting, and I have created even a whole new range of services and offerings based on what I'm doing now for podcasting and live streaming. And now, before I end, I want to talk about Melbourne Money. So Melbourne Money is an interesting initiative because I was alerted to this by Michelle Yeoh of Dandy. So she's telling me about this very interesting initiative in Australia called Melbourne Money. And of course, because it's Melbourne, it's of course in the city of Melbourne. So this is what happens, right? So Melbourne wanted to bring people back into the city. And it was a dining initiative on 11 June to 16 July this year by the Victorian government. The purpose is just one, to bring people back into the city to dine in. And the offer is to claim back 20% of their food and drink bill with a minimum spend of $50 at any of Melbourne's restaurant, cafes, and bars. So it means that you spend money and then you can get money back, right? So what a great idea for diners especially. And guess what happened? So the city bounced back quicker thanks to this dining scheme. So of course they spent money. They rebated, I think they gave back 8.4 million funds. But because of that, they were able to generate over $40 million worth of business for the restaurants, cafes, and dining establishments within the city of Melbourne. So to me, this is such an interesting initiative, interesting story that I had to share it with all of you, because I think if there's any initiative that can work, I think these are some of the creative, smarter ways to make things work, right? I mean, I think that having grants and all that is great, but there must be smarter ways in order to make the economy move again. And so the question is, as the pandemic and lockdown drag on, how will SMEs survive, right? So let me just conclude by saying this. First is that if you're not thinking of going online, you have to go online. And to digitize isn't a nice to have, it's a must have. So this is coming from a person who loves digital, yes. But as you've seen from the examples that I've given, I mean, they went online. they did something online. So try something online. At least try having a place to sell your products, or at least a website to get people to know more about you. And one thing I wanted to mention is this digitization is not just about getting a website or having an e-commerce store or social media updates. It's more than that. It's a mindset, because there are people who are just thinking only of that one path. But what about remote working? What about thinking of how people or how your customers are spending their money now after the pandemic, or at least, when they are able to go out and spend money? So it really is a lot of things in between. So it's not just like, okay, going online means just I'm going to get a website and social media and then that's it, right? So it's really about my second point, think hybrid, which means that you need to think of offline and online. And the keyword for me is seamlessly, because if you can make it seamless and make it effortless for your customers to shop and buy, they will come back again and again, and they will come back to your shop as well as your online shop. So I think if you want a good example of this, of how it can be done in an integrated way, is to look at Uniqlo. Uniqlo Malaysia, well, I guess Uniqlo around the world probably is doing this, but Uniqlo Malaysia, I know for a fact, is because I'm a customer of Uniqlo, right? And they make their offline and online really seamless through their app. So when you go into their store, you see the clothes, but if you want to get a specific value buy, you refer to your app. If you want certain specials, you refer to your app. So they make it really easy for you to just open your app to see what's new and what's coming into the store. And you can order and collect from their store too. And the third thing that I want to talk about is also collaborations. Collaborations here, like I think someone mentioned asked a question in a comment just now, which I saw. It's like there are some businesses that are very traditional, very conventional. Even if you can't do it 100% yourself, what about pairing up with someone who can do it for you, right? So collaborations to me is just that. You have your strength, and another person, another company, another business has their own strength. So what about pairing your strengths together and making it bigger and better for the both of you? So you have to find complementary partners. You have to find people who are, of course, willing to work with you. But if you can have the right proposition for these people are more than happy to extend a helping hand to each other. So to me, I think focusing on collaborations is one of the fastest way to grow. In WomenBizSENSE, we do this very well because we buy from each other a lot. And whenever possible, we try to buy from each other. Whenever possible, we order from each other. So that's one. Two is smarter programs. So for me, smarter programs, remember I showed you about Melbourne Money? Melbourne Money is a smart program, right? So Melbourne Money is encouraging people to come in, to dine, shop, to dine and eat, and at the same time, bring business back to Melbourne. At the same time, the customers get a rebate or get back their money, right? So it works. So consider something like that for yourself. Of course, the one Melbourne Money is really a government initiative, but collaborations are something that's really possible within what we know, right? So focus on collaborations. I think that's the fastest way to grow. I think that's also how a lot of the smaller businesses are already focusing on collaborating with each other and using the strength and the power of doing it together to become better and stronger and to recover faster rather than just doing it alone. So these are my 3 key things that I believe would be good if you were thinking of what are the things that we could do for ourselves. Of course, I always say grant subsidies, they're great, but we have to find sustainable ways to keep our businesses intact, to keep our businesses surviving, right? So these are some of the things which I believe can help you. And of course, finally, thank you for giving me the time and attention. And if you need anything, if you want to find out more about WomenBizSENSE, please feel free to email me. I'm at krista@robostudio.com, and you can find out more about my business as well as WomenBizSENSE. And so thank you. Thank you for for being with me today.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Krista. I think we have covered a very wide range of SMEs. Earlier, from SAMENTA's survey, SAMENTA's members are also in machinery, engineering, in packaging, and also some in services. While from the WomenBizSENSE, if you check their slides earlier or their website, you are also able to see a different spectrum. Some are complementary, but some are very MSMEs also. Some are in the services also. So I think they've covered a wide range of SME categories tonight. Definitely, we won't be able to cover all, but we have spoken a lot about the different SME segments. And in this second speaker session, what we are able to see are different stories of how the SMEs are adapting, and also, if I may borrow an earlier word, pivoting in this current situation. So we'll use the next about 20 minutes that we have to look at some questions in the comments. I think some were already addressed in the presentation earlier. Let me just start with the first one from a user called Prashin. Prashin thinks that one of the factors that hinder SMEs recovery is the inability to ensure either employees or customers are COVID compliant. So the with this compliance issue, it may also make the recovery worse. So around the world, Prashin says that countries are adopting a technology known as verifiable COVID-19 results that can be authenticated with QR scan code. So do you think adopting this technology would help SMEs? That's one. And the second question is, what are your thoughts on implementing this tech? So I think I'll pass this question to Mr. Yeoh.
Okay, thanks for addressing the tough questions to me. No, just kidding. Yeah, just kidding. I think like what this Prashin was asking is that, in a way, our digital vaccination cert is actually a form of verification. I mean, because it has a QR code, and I think now with the new format for the app, which was just released recently, immediately on the screen of your phone, on the first page itself, I think the home page, you can actually determine whether a person has been fully vaccinated. Testing is another thing. For customers, I think they can use the vaccination cert or the verification from MySejahtera to scan the QR code or to verify. I mean, right now you don't even have to scan because you just have to show that you already have full vaccination. For those who I was just talking to someone, and let's say if you have been vaccinated but you've not fulfilled the 14 days, I think it'll just show as partially vaccinated. So that technology has already helped us to some extent, over there. Testing is another thing, which, as far as employees are concerned, I think that's a big issue there in terms of like how frequently should you test, the cost of testing. I think the recent announcement that SOXO is going to provide some of these kits, blah blah blah. Again, how frequent are they going to provide? All that. These are all issues which we have to grapple with. And of course, any technology that can help facilitate, to me, is a plus. But this will probably be taken up at the government level. It's a policy issue because there's not much we can do here except basically just implement it. Again, the responsibility is also on the businesses to basically conform to the SOPs, because I know that sometimes, how many of these so-called retailers do they actually check, to verify that you have the vaccination cert, blah blah blah, all this kind of thing. So I think it requires both sides. Once you have the regulatory policies in place, the mechanisms, but at the same time, I think the implementation or the enforcement has to be done also on the part of businesses. That's my comment. On this question.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Yeoh. I know it's especially challenging, this question, because almost a big part of it involves policy issues lah.
Yeah.
But because it also touch a bit on the SMEs and also
Yeah.
employee compliance.
So,
Okay.
so
The second question from Iris. I want to put this especially to Miss Krista, because she did touch a bit on this during her presentation already. So I thought you would just want to elaborate or discuss a bit further on this question. So, what is your thought on the conventional SME businesses? At some point, digitalization uptake seemed to be quite challenging, especially for traditional business owners. So do you think there can be measures that can be taken to help them to weather the storm? So before I pass this question to this user, I also see your comments below there that there are some probably more elderly business owners that are finding it challenging. In a way, there are some state government agencies now that are conducting classes for elderlies for basic internet functions. So I'm also putting it here now through this platform that we can also consider certain classes for business owners to also increase their skills in digitalization. Let me now pass this question to Ms. Krista.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee. So this is an interesting question because a lot of times traditional conventional businesses, it's not so much that they cannot go online. It's a mindset thing, right? That they feel like I'm too old, I don't understand this, I cannot do this. I cannot even understand how to do this simple thing like even updating stuff and things like they can't. So I always think this way. If you want to do it, but you don't have the patience to do it, that is where you have to either outsource or delegate that work or that piece to someone who can help you with it. So out there these days, there are lots of millennials who are very good with the tech stuff. Lots of people out there who are offering, and this is especially for people who are in the gig economy, right? The freelancers, right? People who have digital services, people who can help you do so many things. I mean, just look on Fiverr. I know there are so many digital things that people can help you with, right? From writing to updating your website to putting your products and even doing voiceovers. You just say, you're shy, you don't want to speak on your video, have a voiceover talent do it for you. So your job is not, if you want to learn, great. Because to me, I also believe that if you can learn, at least you can understand what that person is doing, it will definitely help you. But if you feel that right now, learning it is not the main concern of yours, work with someone or outsource it to someone who can help you with it. And you will never be short of talent, because out there, there's someone definitely who is able to help you with it. But you must be open to exploring that option. Because if you are not open, no amount of digitization will help. So let me give you a case in point of a story I know. This is a particular traditional Chinese medicine retailer in the heart of Georgetown that was just selling herbs the normal way, walk-ins. They sold it to their customers, and of course, the customer base is probably people slightly older. But because of wanting to capture the online market, so they went online. So they started selling their herbs online. So this is a concept of you want to do it, maybe you don't know how to do it, outsource to someone. But at least you must be able to open yourself to trying this way of doing business. And many times I've seen so many businesses who can benefit from going online, but it's just that their owners or the CEOs or the people running the business just hold themselves back mentally because they feel that they're intimidated by it and therefore they don't want to learn it. And they always say that, it's just young people, right? The young people can do it. It's nothing to do with young. Your brain can be young, right? It's just that you have to embrace it and tell yourself, if there's no other way, this is the way to move forward, then so be it. Then go ahead and do it. So to me, that is it. I mean, to me, there are many ways around it. It's just you have to start with the first thing is, do you want to do it? Do you want to go online? If you don't want to go online, nothing can push you online.
Yeah, if I may just add a little bit to what Krista has just said, is that I think I totally concur with what she's mentioned. But just to add on is that see, the point is that prior to the pandemic, the government and a lot of people in business have already been advocating digitalization. It's just that unfortunately, because as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So when the COVID pandemic came about, I think it's like a lot of businesses, like I said just now, is that you're forced to think of an alternative business model or to look at new revenue streams or to realign your strategies. Because right now, when you can't sell through the physical storefront, then what do you do? Because by virtue of our policies, there's a lockdown and you can't sell. So if you don't pivot or you don't switch to an alternative platform, then the sad thing is that you will continue to have zero revenue now because you can't operate. Simple as that. So the thing is that sometimes is like what Krista mentioned, is like reality shakes you up because you're faced with this situation. So some of the comments saying that to me is that maybe I'll pick the next question as well. It's like I think it's conventional or digital. To me, is not the real issue. It's what kind of business model you have. The digitalization part is just a strategy. These are just tools for you. So it's like you can still continue selling via your face-to-face interaction, but at the same time, is that going to be enough for you going forward? Because knowing that there are going to be disruptions along the way, so is it going to be viable for your business to just rely on one particular platform, or like what Krista mentioned? Why don't you look at a hybrid model? I mean, because like if you have an alternative here, why do you just want to be dependent on just one particular platform, which is the face-to-face or physical kind of situation? Okay, yeah. So I think this is something which, like what you say, you can outsource. You can get your children who can be helping you. If it's a family business, things like that. So I think it's like like she correctly pointed out, is that it's a mindset thing. If you really feel that hey, it's survival, you will find a way to turn this around. But if you are very complacent and you're contented as what some businesses are, unfortunately, there's a Hokkien expression to say that chapa bepa, which means that you're so full, then you don't really are not really pushed into it. Then of course, well, that's your choice. But if it is if it necessitates you to transform, then you have to, because whether you like it or not, that's the way to run businesses. You have to adapt to what's coming in front of you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you both for that response. I think digitalization really is a big theme for tonight's discussion. Okay. The next question is from this user Ong. I would like to just okay, I think it's not on the screen yet, but I'll start asking that question also. So there are also SMEs. We know the assistances that are going to SMEs, but some also have a bit of access problem to the assistances. And here, the question is about whether the government can look into better alternatives to reopening based on science and data, and instead of the current lockdown that we are facing. And also, there are also countries that have already done a lot more reopening than we are doing now. Let me just add to that. I think there are also SMEs associations that have been voicing out that the SOPs may be too complicated. They want a more simple SOP that is easier to look at. So Can I get Mr. Yeoh to answer this question?
Yeah, another tough question for me. Okay, no, just kidding. But no, I think first thing is that I never advocated that wage subsidy is the cure all or end all. I think I'm just saying that we have to be realistic about the situation. There are things within. To me, the important thing for SMEs to always consider entrepreneurs is that what is within your control and what is outside your control. Like if you are in a non-essential, whatever assistance helps, just like a wage subsidy. I'm not saying that it's going to obliterate all your problems, wave a magic wand and you will go away. No, that's not going to happen. But with that wage subsidy, it will at least give you some additional cash flow whereby you can still pay some of your employees if you are entitled to the wage subsidy. Okay, so that's one point. So again, I'm not saying that the wage subsidy is sufficient. A lot of people would argue that it's not sufficient. I don't want to go into that discussion about whether the quantum is fair, not fair, and all those things, because again, that's for another platform. So, but the thing is that government procurement, again, it is something that unfortunately there are a lot of things that can be done with government procurement, but which, if you say that we are not aware of it, back to what Krista says, mindset. Why are you not aware? It's like if you were hungry enough. I was just listening to something from Tony Robbins. If you have hunger for whatever grants or businesses, you will go and search for it. The problem is that sometimes SMEs, we should not be just sitting on our laurels waiting for things to come to us. Go and seek, go and look for all these things which are out there in the websites of the ministries and stuff like that as well. Of course, we're not saying that the policies are perfect, but we're saying that, hey, let's also do our part to help ourselves. Let's move and go and grab all these things that are available out there. Sometimes people criticize and say, hey, I don't know that these grants are available. So the next question is, why are you not aware of this? Do you actually, nowadays it's so easy to surf, unlike 30 years ago when I was working is a totally different thing. You depend on someone to extract the information, to send it through circulars, cyclo-style, print it, send it out as newsletters to SMEs. Today, you just have to click. Go into the website and click. And you will get a lot of this information. The next thing is that you're going to put in the effort and then you're going to submit. I'm not saying that it's a breeze, that everybody will be entitled or eligible to it, but at least you should be aware of what's out there as well. Of course, associations will try to help. Even WomenBizSENSE, I'm sure they also do that. They disseminate some of this information. SAMENTA does that as well, as and when we can. Okay, the next thing is that as far as a better option, frankly, again, it's a policy matter. I also do not want to go into the argument of lockdown, not lockdown. I think all of us have got different views and different perspectives on what should happen, what should not happen. But the point is, let's work within what we can control. So I'm saying just now is that if you are in a lockdown situation, if you're in non-essentials, then you make do with what's available out there. You basically tighten your cash flow, you cut back on your expenses as much as you can. You stretch your funds as long as possible. So these are the things which are within your control. Anything that is policy, which is outside of our domain, we can cry about it, we can complain and things like that, and we can, of course we do that as well. But the thing is that it's outside our control. Let's be real, and a lot of it is actually even at a federal level, which is even more complicated because it's not even at the state level. There's such decisions. So I think if we look at it, understand the situation we're in, make do with whatever that is available and try to tap that, and whatever helps. Even if the wage subsidy, if we can get some of it, I'm sure if you ask most of the SMEs, they'll tell you that it has helped. It may not be sufficient, but it has helped. That is why people have asked for an extension, right? For another 6 months. And as what I said, if you can't operate, let's say if you can't operate and you're only starting to turn around at the end of the year, that additional 6 months for 2022 until June is going to be a big plus, because that's the time when you are just hoping to turn around and you need whatever, financial assistance that's given to you. So that's the reality, I think. Yeah, you know.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Yeoh. We are running out of time, but I would like to give both an opportunity to give your final thoughts on our discussion tonight. I know that our limited time will not be able to address some of the questions here, but I take this opportunity to let you know that if you feel that the questions are pressing enough, you need us to continue to give some answers, please feel free to email us at Penang Institute, enquiry@penanginstitute.org, or I think just now Krista has also put out her contact details. You can also check back that slide to also get in touch with her personally. Now, I think probably to the two speakers, I want to hear your final thoughts on this discussion tonight, and probably if we may, because the budget 2022 will be very soon. If you just have 2 or 3 items that you feel are really necessary for the SMEs, probably we can also address this in your closing remarks tonight. Let me just start from Mr. Yeoh, then we'll go to Miss Krista next.
Okay. I look at it from two perspectives. One is, of course, it's always demand, which is sales. Because if you don't have sales, if you don't have demand, there's no cash flow. So it's very important that going forward, you see, if the economy is not, let's say, going to recover as fast, this is where I feel that's why government procurement comes in. You know, that's why I mentioned government procurement, because if the private sector's demand is still depressed, if let's say consumer spending is still not strong enough, this is where government procurement can facilitate, provided they actually allocate a certain percentage to help SMEs. That means buy goods and services from SMEs. That's from the demand side. Okay. Again, like I said, of course, we would welcome, we would pray and hope that the consumer spending would rise. But let's be realistic. I mean, you've read reports saying that it may be still very flat going forward. Okay. So again, the opening is going to be gradual. Yeah. As we have seen from the survey results, it's only middle of 2022 that we expect, a more significant recovery, second half. From the financial side, that's from the demand side, because without sales, without demand, there's no business. So you got to always start from sales, right? I mean, but the thing is that then how do you have the working capital? So my wish list would be, again, for the government to be looking at, like I said, working capital financing, because SMEs will not have any more collateral to give. They have depleted their reserves going forward. Okay, so unless the banks step in with guarantees from CGC, that's where the government facilitates and support, give this type of working capital financing, but targeted trade financing, invoice financing, to help SMEs to buy goods. Because if they can't buy goods, they can't sell. Right? I mean, let's say if I've got the orders, but I need funds to be buying goods. And do remember that going forward, a lot of suppliers are going to tighten up their credit terms because they are scared, right? Because they are worried about your risk profile. Because they don't know whether you can survive. So they wouldn't be giving you your 3 months, 6 months credit anymore. So they may just say, hey, pay me on cash basis. So if they do that, how are you going to buy goods and services? You can't. So you need this cycle. So liquidity is going to be very important. So my parting message is that let's hope that in the 2022 budget, there'll be sufficient funds, again, support from the banks via CGC, which these are all, or SJKPP, these are all government entities, to allow SMEs to have access to working capital financing. Then they can have this hope to recover. Yeah, so those would be my parting message. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, Miss Krista.
Okay, since Mr. Yeoh has given that picture, so I will not go in there. But what I do want to say is this very important thing. Think about sustainability. Okay? Because sustainability is going to be one keyword that you'll be hearing a lot from now moving forward. So sustainability means, of course, sustainability for our own businesses, right? Means can we keep it, growing and going forward is one. But sustainability has also another meaning, right? For the millennials who are going to be customers of the future or even customers now, they are going to buy products and services that align to their values. So if you're a company or you're a business that you're not going to look into areas of sustainability, people are now talking about greener lifestyle, more sustainable practices. So if you're not looking into areas like this is probably a good time to do so, because this allows you to be differentiated in the market. A lot of businesses out there are more concerned, yes, I want to survive, right? Yes, correct. We all want to survive. But in that process of wanting to survive, think about what are the practices currently in your business that you can make greener, cleaner, better, which means that you really have to zoom into what you're doing right now in your business, whether it's a SME or not. So this is going to resonate a lot with your customer base. And some of you may say, but I don't sell to millennials. I really don't care, right? Everyone will care because we don't have a planet that that can sustain all these things without one day going to combust, right? So we have to look into our practices as consumers as well as creators of value. So if you're going to do business from now into the future, think about sustainability, think about ESG, SDGs, and this is something which I believe will be coming up more and more in the future. Think of the gig economy. You may not necessarily need to employ everyone. There are freelancers out there. There are people out there who are willing to do work now and don't want to be employed, right? They don't want to be employed full-time. They want to be doing work at their own time. They're autonomous and they want to have the freedom. So these two things. And the third thing I want to talk about is also explore the excess capacity concept, which means that you may not have that, but do other people have that? And can you work with those people to create something new? So there are a lot of excess capacity. For instance, right? If this restaurant is not open, but they still have a kitchen, what can you do with that kitchen?
And can you partner up with that restaurant is not open up for dining,
they have this excess space. So these are some of the, I would say, creative ways of thinking about surviving into the future, because this is where we can make things better and make things go the way that should be, rather than focusing on the old ways. Let's move into the new innovative ways of thinking and doing things. And so those are the things that I want to talk about is, bear this in mind as business owners and as consumers, right? So that's what I have to share tonight. Yeah,
just a quick one is that this one is actually a little bit of a pitch in the sense that SAMENTA has been around for basically 35 years now. So I think SAMENTA is not my girlfriend, but it's the name of the association. So it just so happens that it sounds like a lady's name. Yeah. So anyway, the thing is that go to our Facebook page, or you can go to our website. And also maybe before I add is that like what Siu Ming mentioned, there's Digital Penang, which actually provides some of this awareness training on IT savviness, whatever. So I think, again, go into the website or the Facebook page, you'll also be exposed to what's available and some of these programs or workshops that are conducted by them. Before I go, it's also going to our website, there's still the BKK grant, which is the so-called Digitalization Grant, which is available for SMEs that are registered or incorporated in Penang. For those of you who have not applied for the grant yet, this was actually a joint effort between SAMENTA and Digital Penang. So please go into our website, www.samenta.org.my. And this is a grant. It's not even a matching grant. It's an outright grant. Yes, it's only 1,000 ringgit, but again, every single dollar helps. Like I say, it's just to support the initiative for SMEs to embark on this digitalization journey. So some of you may be already very advanced, as what Krista mentioned, but some may be just at the starting stage. So it doesn't matter which part of the journey you're at, but please make use. I think we already it's up to a maximum of 1,000 companies. We have already given out, I think, about 700 plus. So again, there's still a balance of it. So for those who have not yet applied for the grant, take this opportunity, go into our website. Everything can be applied online, a very simple process. And hopefully that 1,000 ringgit is a state government initiative, which we thank the Penang state government a lot for actually supporting this very noble, financial aid, to facilitate digitalization, for SMEs in Penang. So I think with that, I thank you, Xiu Ming, again. It's nice to be sharing the virtual stage with Krista, and I hope the attendees actually have benefited from the session. So very good night to everyone, and stay safe.
Dr. Lee, if I may, can I share one more thing I just remembered?
Sure.
If anybody wants to, because I found this very good, they call it a recovery framework by Deloitte. So if anybody wants that, just email me and I can just email that PDF to you, which has really good questions to ask yourself. They base it on these 3 things that they call it reflect, I think. Reflect, restart, and revitalize. So they have a small business roadmap recovery workbook from Deloitte. So I don't work for Deloitte, but I just thought that they have a very good way for you to crystallize your thinking about how to move forward post-pandemic. So if anyone wants that, just email me. You got my email address. If not, I'll just go back into the comments later and put my email address there. Yeah. With that, I'm done.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yeoh. Thank you very much, Ms. Krista. Let me just continue a bit the pitch by Mr. Yeoh. I think it's really important to follow SAMENTA, follow WomenBizSENSE. If you want to continue to look at more stories of women entrepreneurs, I think WomenBizSENSE page has that information. I think the latest one is a story about a spice business. And I think if you did not follow SAMENTA, then you would have missed information about the Penang state government and SAMENTA's information about the 1,000 ringgit incentive as well. So I think do follow for business owners, and if the attendees here, you are a consumer, I advocate to support our local SMEs. And I think the main important thing when we do webinars like this is to raise issues, and we hope that it reach more people, it reach policymakers as well, to look at the issues that we are facing. We know that our small individual limited power may not be able to solve policies, may not be able to solve the large issues on hand, but we want to raise these issues so that it reach people, it reach the policymakers, it reach more other channels. Let me thank everyone again, the speakers, Mr. Yeoh, Ms. Krista, and everyone who have been with us since 8 p.m. Tonight for this session. With that, I thank you all very much and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Very good evening. Take care. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye. Yep.